Hi Chris, how are you?
Good morning, Rod. Yeah, I'm well. Here we are on a beautiful sunny day. I don't know what it's like with you. It looks like some sun coming through your window.
Yeah, it's not bad. There's mostly blue skies. There's the odd slightly worrying looking cloud drifting by, but other than that, it's all right.
I think it's going to be a belter here today, and it's episode 218. It's the 28th of March, and we're nearly in April. Crazy.
We are, and I don't know if you managed to listen to it yourself, but I seamlessly went over the top of our mistaken episode number last week.
I haven't actually. I should go back and listen. I have got it queued up. I think I've got two things to listen to. Friday's always around the Chris Harris podcast on cars and usually a bit of ATP, but I haven't got any. I'm so far behind, so apologies. It's in the list.
So we said last week's episode, which was 217, was 218, but it wasn't. This is 218, not 217. So yeah, check it out.
Okay, all right. I will. That's my homework. I will try and do that.
It was seamless, and in the YouTube video, it's particularly seamless because I do draw attention to the mistake.
Well, fair play to you.
Well, you know, you've got to be honest, haven't you?
Yeah, fair enough. Should we get into it?
Let's get into it, and let's stick with the theme of honesty for follow-up. So we reported on last year Elon Musk suing Apple and others for pulling out their advertising on Twitter. Do you remember this story?
Yes, but you're not sharing your screen.
That's your problem, not the viewers, listeners.
That's fine.
But, you know, you can still tell us about, do you remember the story?
I do remember the story. Sorry, I was I was like, well, the thing hasn't popped up. So, yeah, no, I do remember the story. This was about everybody boycotting Elon/Twitter after Elon had purchased the company. And obviously they lost squillions in revenue. And Elon thought he had the right to take them to court for basically doing the boycott. And I don't think I'm surprised by this, but the judge has gone, no, you haven't got a case here, and they've thrown it out, which I think is probably the right thing. Elon, hopefully it's humbled him a little bit and realised people can vote with their feet.
Yeah, I mean, this almost feels like sanity prevailing. There's been a few court judgments in America recently that I felt like sanity is prevailing, and this never made sense. Of course, it's up to the advertisers whether they want to advertise on a platform or not. You know, that's just commerce. That's capitalism, surely. It's not immoral, illegal, or unethical to pull your advertising because you think a platform may be immoral, illegal, or unethical. Anyway, in this opinion, U.S. District Judge Jane Boyle wrote the lawsuit was dismissed because Musk failed to state a claim. His arguments that advertisers acted against their own best interest by avoiding advertising on his platform, now called X, did not plead facts showing that consumers were harmed. Without consumer harm, there can be no antitrust violation. The judge wrote, deeming the ad boycott to be perfectly legal. Sensible.
The statement I liked on this one, I was reading this earlier, and it said, analysing the alleged conspiracy, Boyle makes it clear that, in her opinion, that Musk seemingly did not realise ahead of purchasing Twitter how much power advertisers had gained over platforms by collectively agreeing on brand safety standards, i.e. our brand isn't safe if we advertise on your platform. That's quite a statement, isn't it?
Yeah, and I seem to remember him saying F advertisers when all this happened was his first response to it. I mean, this forms part of a whole bunch. He's quite litigious, I think, Elon, it's fair to say. You know, he loves a bit of legal stuff. He's obviously got lots of lawyers on retainer, as they might say in America. And this was part of a larger thermonuclear legal fight that Musk started when he sued Media Matters of America for reporting for the claim that prompted the boycott. I mean, I seem to remember that he's got a bunch of other things ongoing at the same time of this as well. This is just one of many, including his purchase of X/Twitter in the first place, where his tweets may have devalued the platform to a point where he was able to buy it. That's all alleged, but you think that's quite a lot of legal action he's got going on.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody like him's always in some sort of state of legal turmoil, I guess. Do you want a quick segue on Elon, just very briefly? I was watching The Big Bang Theory, I think season 9. Elon's in it for a substantial amount of time. I was really surprised, and I think this was more Elon in his heyday rather than his latter years, I guess. And he was in like a soup kitchen washing up as a holiday sort of special, but it was just really weird to see him in that sort of context. I can't imagine him doing that sort of thing. A, being asked to do that sort of thing now, and B, actually doing that sort of thing now.
Well, Donald Trump used to pop up in Home Alone films and things like that too. It's probably not entirely surprising that they do. I think Elon and Larry Ellison pop up in one of the Iron Man films.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, Iron Man 2, I think. In fact,
okay. I'm going to say 2.
There's an awful lot of Oracle advertising in one of them, in fact.
yeah, it's probably gets distasteless at some point.
Well, yeah, this is how the cookie is made, how the bread is made. What's the sausage is made? That's the correct allegory for that. The sausage is made by getting money from advertising. I mean, we talked about this before. We were talking about this should be all be in the media section, by the way, including your watching of The Big Bang Theory.
I just wanted to segue while we were talking about Elon. I just thought it was weird he popped up, but it was about 10 years ago this was filmed, so it was like I say more him in his prime rather than him in this. Well, I guess he's in his prime financially, but in his public opinion, less so.
I think his geekiness is definitely, you could see the link between it and, well,
Yep.
his alleged geekiness between the Big Bang Theory and stuff like that. He's in a bunch of Mars stuff as well, which wasn't surprising. He thinks we want to go interplanetary anyway, doesn't he? So, anyway, this is, I think, a sensible legal ruling because it's up to the advertisers, not to the platform, and it's just nice to see this kind of thing can occasionally still happen.
Hopefully this is the last we're going to talk about it, but who knows?
I don't know. Legal stuff keeps coming up, which is a perfect segue into our next article, which is from 9 to 5 Mac. And this is EU broadcasters specifically, want Apple TV and Siri regulated as gatekeepers under the DMA. I find it really odd what platforms go into the DMA and what don't. I mean, you and I found it surprising that iMessage wasn't flagged as a gatekeeper app.
I did, and then I looked at some of my children's phones and I was fixing one of their friends' phones, and then I realised, actually, none of these kids use iMessage for anything, whereas for me, iMessage is my messaging life, but I'm probably more an outlier there, but I do find it odd iMessage isn't included. What I found odd about this one, though, is they're asking for Apple TV and Siri. Like, nobody's using Siri. I'm sorry.
No, nobody's using Siri. Why would you use Siri for anything? I mean, it's a port last call other than setting timers. It's quite good at setting timers after I tell it to do it 3 times.
I don't know what my wife was doing this morning, but as she walked upstairs, I just heard her phone go, "Sorry, I can't do that." And I was just like, just asked Siri to do something.
Why doesn't it just say, sorry, I can't do anything?
Yeah. Why are you bothering to ask me? Just use the keyboard. It's quicker.
Yeah. Anyway, this is, like you say, I think it's really weird that Siri's bundled into this. I mean, Apple TV I can kind of see, but anyway, broadcasters want smart TVs and virtual assistants, not just Siri and Apple TV, to be designated as gatekeepers. And I suppose if you're a broadcaster, I mean, you could see the BBC being all over this, couldn't you? They've got their iPlayer app, but what broadcasters want is for people to use their apps, but more fundamentally watch their TV programs on their channels as they put them over satellite, put them over airwaves, however they do them. So if you are a Roku, an Amazon, an Apple, or Google TV, you are obviously in a position of power over those broadcasters.
Yeah, no, you're right. You can kind of see it, but that's more Apple, though, and Samsung as the platforms. Suppose this is where they want Apple TV to be down. I mean, this is probably where there's that irregularity of Apple TV naming. Do they mean Apple TV the service? Do they mean Apple TV the hardware or the OS or what? I
mean, just to briefly go down a rat hole, which isn't like us, Apple are bad at naming. I gotta say, They used to be quite good at naming. Now they're bad at naming. They've reused, like, MacBook Neo. I don't think is a great name. It's a good product, but I don't think it's a great name. But the king of bad naming is Microsoft. How many variants of Copilot have we got?
No, I don't know. It just gets too confusing.
Copilot on your PC, Copilot, the Copilot agent in GitHub, Copilot, the Copilot Microsoft 365 Copilot. There's a Microsoft Dynamics Copilot. There's a Copilot built into Windows. Does Copilot speak to Copilot to get you to do a Copilot thing inside your Copilot app? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think, Copilot. And I think you get Pro and like Premium and stuff, and it's like, well, which one's the better one? It's hard to know, isn't it?
Of course you do. And actually, Copilot is just the tip of a thin wedge with Microsoft, because you could have your Xbox One X, One X, which was another...
Oh, don't. Yeah, the X... Oh.
So Microsoft is bad, but Apple is bad, and they shouldn't be learning from these kinds of lessons, really. Anyway, I think this is interesting. What is potentially being designated as a gatekeeper? Obviously, they haven't yet. They're being lobbied to the EU to do so. But sort of the statement that says... Google, Amazon, Apple, and Samsung smart TVs and virtual assistants should fall under the EU's toughest tech rules because of their growing market power. The world's largest broadcaster told the EU antitrust chief Teresa Ribera on Monday. And you can see that it is devolving the power away from a BBC, a Canal Plus, Paramount, whoever, to that sort of... this isn't surprising. We talked about Apple buying Disney back in the day. So...
Yeah, no, you're right. It isn't surprising, is it? But... yeah, it makes sense. Apple TV's should be getting some market share now, but we don't really know, do we?
No.
They've certainly got a lot of interesting films on it and TV shows, but are they actually making headway into market share?
I think this is more slightly about the product, but more about an Apple TV box as well as what they're putting on there. It's a combination of those things. Anyway, something else that likes to add new features is Flighty. I'm a big fan of the Flighty app. I have been a subscriber in the past, not currently. Not been doing so much flying this year. But Flighty is an app that's super useful if you're zipping around airports quite a lot. It will tell you things like what gate your flight's about to leave from, where if your plane has even landed at the airport, if it's been delayed, what's going on with that. And they're going to add, the developer of Flighty, which is just one person, is going to add a few more elements to it, including airport intelligence, which is going to give you more information about what's actually happening in terms of disruption at your airport.
And you can access this through the web, which I thought was a bit cool. Fair play, one solo developer app. Like sometimes solo developed apps just do really well because they've got one person on it and they're just iterating on a thing and they move quicker than if it was owned by a bigger beast. This sounds quite cool. This is, I think, the most interesting use of the term Apple Intelligence I've seen in 2 years, because this is actually something that sounds, looks pretty good, because obviously we all know that the flights are often delayed and there's issues at airports, and this is going to collate all that information together and give you helpful updates. Like, how cool.
Yeah, a good app. It's got an interesting subscribing model as well. Most things are either you pay for it for a month or for life, and the monthly subscriptions are often an option but more expensive. Flighty actually offers weekly options as well, I think.
Yeah, they obviously know their market, and they know people probably aren't going to pay for it for a month if they're just doing one flight on, a family holiday. Take me, for example, going on holiday next week. Maybe I should check this out. I think it's quite cool, and it's got such a good reputation, don't you think? It's never had that, Flighty was great, now they've done this thing and it's really creepy and badly done. It's consistently been really good. So, fair play for them shipping something ahead of Apple that's got Apple Intelligence.
Yeah, one thing I really liked about it was the ability to share your journey as well. So you could add your flights to it and then share that with family members, so they'd be able to have a live track of what's going on with your flight. When you landed, it would give notifications. Always quite a nice feature. Or if you're using the app, you could share you could track your friends and family as well, and it wouldn't count in your flight hours. So just a very good app. Yeah,
that generally seems to do the right thing. Maybe I should send this to my mum, because she always likes to track when I fly somewhere.
I think it's not a bad shout. You should check it out. Moving on to something else that we occasionally talk about, in this case AI. We've had quite a few AI stories, unsurprisingly, over the last couple of years. And this is, again, quite a good news story. It's quite nice to get the odd good news story, is it? So this is UK government is going to reverse course on its AI copyright position. So about a month ago, they came out and said that, no, there were no rights for artists in AI. AI companies could do what they like to do these kinds of things. And too bad. And in the picture for the Engadget article here, we have Paul McCartney, but he was one of many people who spoke out about this theft of their intellectual property, basically. Anyway, last Wednesday, the UK government abandoned its position on copyrighted works, and it's currently working on a data bill that, if unaltered, would have allowed AI companies like Google and AI to train their models on this stuff. Anyway, there's going to be there has been something of a backlash about this, but they're reconsidering their position.
I think it is semi-good news article. The only thing I'd say is the stance is now it no longer has a preferred option. Like, that seems like, you've moaned, so we're not going to do it, and we're just going to sit on the fence. Which I don't know if it's good or bad in the long run. Time will tell.
It is. I was at a conference this week. I won't say where or what, but what I hadn't realised is quite how much political pressure is put on purchasing agreements in things like this by the United States. So whenever they get involved with the government, whenever they've got a particular piece of technology they want to push out, how contingent it is that clauses are built into UK law to allow the easy access and purchase to American technology and products. And with the very not very cynical hat on, you can see how this would be part of that. If you are the big AI companies, Claude, OpenAI, Copilot, then you want the ability to penetrate markets and have access to all of the things to build your models on. So of course you're going to build into that. So again, slightly tinfoil hatty, but you can see it, can't you?
Yeah, you can 100%. So, watch this space, I guess, or will just nothing ever happen in the future, and AI will carry on doing its thing, and nothing will happen. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, and the snake eats its tail. I think we've fired through follow-up quite quickly there. Should we do the news?
Let's do the news.
So I guess the big story of the last week, well, not big story, but something we can talk about, is WWDC.
The expected story, I guess, because it normally gets announced around now.
Yeah, so WWDC, which is Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, which is open for a week, has been officially announced to start between June the 8th and the 12th, 2026. So that's per the course, I think, right?
It is. I'm a little bit meh on it because normally I really look forward to it, but their graphic this year to announce this is just the most boring thing I've ever seen. So it says WW, which they always munge together in kind of one triple double W word, and then they got DC and they got 26. It's all in like greys and blacks, and then they 26 in this retina burning white. It just looks really dull. I'm sorry, I don't know what Apple are going for here, but it just looks really boring and not very enthusing. Whereas I wanted to, you normally get some graphics and some colour and a bit of personality to these events, a bit more than what you normally see from Apple, and I just think looks really boring.
Is this a clue that they've got nothing to announce? Because normally when they're dissecting what the images mean, new Mac Pro, whatever it would be, that would be this. But
sick burn there, Rod.
Yeah, no, I do try. It is extremely dull, but I got to say, I'm not really anticipating very much of excitement. The rumors so far have been that it's going to be a Snow Leopard year, right? They're going to sort of consolidate what's gone wrong with the operating system. Probably not liquid glass, unfortunately, but other things are going to fix some bugs. Both you and I have been commenting on bugs in CarPlay and iOS this time around in the last week, so hopefully I'd quite like to see that.
No, I'm with you. They have, though, said Apple Intelligence is coming, or AI. I can't remember how they phrased it on the bit I read. So they clearly have said that that's happening. So we're going to get the 27 OS's updates. I hope they do bug fixing. There will be some new features, there will be, but some bug fixing. Do you remember the 1 year where they went, we've gone back and sped up all the apps and we've improved battery life and stuff? That would be an amazing update, wouldn't it? Just stuff like something that people would tangibly get value out of.
Yeah, I think it's probably needed. There's clearly not a hurried sense of development in Apple, and if you look over the last couple of years, there's been some fairly significant failures. And if we look at the whole Apple Intelligence thing, if we look at how much we were promised in some of the operating systems and the way they've parceled things out, whereas here's all the big things you're getting, actually you're not going to get continuity, we're going to hold that back for a 0.3 or 0.4 release or something like that. So I think they do need to get their ability to walk and chew gum at the same time together to a certain extent. There's a lot of platforms, there's not a lot of developers, there does seem to be a lack of quality. See System Settings app for any evidence you want about that. See the ability to resize windows with rounded corners and eating into your content. So I would quite like to see them give their operating systems a nip and tuck right across the board.
Yeah, I'm completely with you here. And liquid glass, for example, why did they release it on everything all at once? Should have done one at a time or a couple at a time, and it's just been a bit meh. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it looks like. I am looking forward to it, but I'm just disappointed with the way they've positioned it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Something else I'm disappointed in is Apple's continued interference in solo developers. So we've talked about this a lot over the years, that a developer will do something either for a feature that's missing from the operating system or a feature that should be part of the operating systems, and Apple will just block it.
Yep, this is awful, isn't it? So Apple's blocked App Store updates for an app that basically did what Launchpad did, and it was called AppGrid. And it's like, well, this app's come along because Apple got rid of Launchpad, so developers gone away, made something akin to it, and has released it. And Apple and have released it and had a few updates for it, and then Apple has stopped it. So it hasn't been updated in 4 months because Apple's actively blocked it. And it just seems bizarre because this is functionality they've taken out of Tahoe. A developer's gone and built something. Like, he should be allowed to do that, or she, and it's up to them if they want to build it, and customers if they want to buy it. Apple shouldn't really have a horse in this race. It's not breaking any rules, but they're saying it's too close to functionality in the system, which I'm sorry, but does that mean they're going to stop things like Quicksilver or whatever it may be, or Alfred, because it's too close to Spotlight? It's like, but you need this competition to make a better product, and if people want to do their own interpretation of it, they should be allowed to do that. This is absolutely bonkers.
I mean, it gets to the core of the walled garden that we live in sometimes, doesn't it? It's my computer. I should be able to install what I want on it. Now, I guess Apple would take the position that, well, just don't install it from the App Store then. Go and install it elsewhere. But you and I might do that because we're long-standing Mac people, but somebody who just came to the platform with a MacBook Neo yesterday may not even appreciate that there's any software sources other than the App Store. But to allow it to live on in a buggy state, not just kill it and stop it, there's so much wrong with this story.
It's all wrong. It's up to the user what they want to put on there. Apple should just do the security check so you know it's not got malware in it and isn't phoning home every 5 seconds. They should do that, and they should just let this app be on the store. I don't understand it.
And for so long, they tried to get apps into the store at all. So now when people are using it, you're actively discouraging them. If people loved the Launchpad feature, which somebody must have, it wasn't for me, but, it must. They left it in the operating system for about 6 different versions, so,
It was in there for a long time.
Yeah.
A long, long time. But yeah, this is just dumb. Apple, stop it.
Yeah. Grow up, for goodness sake.
Like, what a stupid news story.
You see, you spoiled my segue there.
Oh.
Grow up, for goodness sake, is what I said. And Apple are forcing you to ensure that you're grown up by, in the latest 26.4 release, asking for age verification. Did you get the check?
No, I've not seen a check, but I thought I saw somewhere if you'd been like a long-term Apple customer, it can go, oh, you've been with us for like 20 years, you're good. We know you're not 15. But I wonder whether my kids will get this. I don't know if they've updated yet.
I got it.
Oh, okay.
So You've
been with Apple a long time.
I got 26.4 first screen. Please verify your age. And I was on my phone, and it said, please enter your Apple iCloud password. And I've just changed my iCloud password, and I didn't know what it was. So I didn't want to do that point. So I clicked skip for now, and it said the operating system will be restricted.
Wow, okay.
Now, that made me quite cross for lots of reasons. But, A, it's not UK law yet. How dare they?
And it's not like you've had an iPhone since they came out, so very bizarre.
But even that, it was saying, according to UK law, we need to verify your age. This is not UK law yet.
When does it be? Sorry, I'm just looking in my iCloud area to see whether this is something I can see, but I can't seem to see it anyway.
It was on my notification screen when I restarted it. I skipped it and I had to go into settings to allow it. And the way it allowed it was, oh yeah, you've been an Apple customer forever. So it just let me go on. But I found this deeply disturbing that they're enforcing this already. Now, okay, that we can see which way the wind's blowing, that this is going to happen, not just in the UK, but in California, Minnesota, blah, blah, blah. There's going to be lots of states in America that do this, and lots of governments around the world are rubbing their hands about the ability to potentially track users at all time to know that they're over the age of 18 and what they're doing on the internet. It's the dream of every security service and government in the world to know what your citizens do. It feels like such a breach of personalized privacy to me. And what happens next? VPNs? Are they going to start our ability, to connect to work? They know what you're doing all the time. That, again, very tinfoil hatty, but I just think it's getting far too regimented. George Orwell would be proud.
Quite, he called it. But this thing in isolation isn't a big deal. But you're right; it's just another step towards this nannied state, and it's crazy. I will update one of my child's phones over the weekend, and I'll see what they get.
How didn't you get this? Because you were on the beta?
Possibly. I had the public beta on my iPhone because I wanted to try out the new Apple Music look and feel on some of the screens. It looked pretty good. But no, I haven't seen this.
I genuinely don't notice most of the features. It tells me, oh, everything's changed, and I'm like, has it? I don't see it.
The Apple Music stuff, they've just tidied up. They have actually marginally improved the screens for album and artist, I think, but they were pretty rubbish before. They're not fantastic now. They're just better.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't like this very much, I must say. I think it's a creeping encroachment of the security state and stopping people doing what they could always do with their computers, which was write and do cool things.
Yep, I am with you on this.
One other feature of the operating system that may be notable, particularly for Mac users in this case, and if you've got a Neo, this might be really important to you, is that it will warn you if you've got a slow charging charger connected to your Mac, or you've plugged it in at the wrong port, and you could be getting more speed elsewhere. So I guess that's useful.
They should do this, because they do this on your phone, don't they? It comes up on the lock screen if you're slow charging, so... So 100% do this, especially now they're not shipping plugs here in the UK with their devices. So I think they should do this.
They still ship a charger in America, though, right?
Yep.
Why is it cut out in the UK?
Oh, I don't know. We're special.
We're so special. We get treated so well, and we keep just buying more. Not that I'm bitter about it. Yeah, I think this is. It's a reasonable thing to do. To be honest, my Linux laptops both did this anyway. If I plugged it in, it went, your charging speed does not exceed your drain speed. Find a faster charger. So it's not revolutionary technology. If this is the 26th version of the operating system, why is it taking this long?
Yeah, agree on all of that. They should have done this ages ago. But look, it's in. It's fine. There's nothing really to say about it, is it? It's fine.
Fine.
It's a bit of a nothing.
It's like those LG monitors, isn't it? They're ultra fine.
Fine. Well,
Something else
bit like the studio displays. They're fine.
Yeah. Something else that may be fine is that you could have Siri as a standalone app. Is that something you're desiring in your life?
I'm not right now because Siri doesn't do anything. But if they are actually going to actually launch a good Siri, I'll be interested to see what this looks like. And they should do it as an app because people like their ChatGPT app. So if they are really going to go up against Gemini and ChatGPT, they need to have an app on their home screen, don't they?
But it is just going to be Gemini, isn't it?
I think they've been allowed to do a lot to Gemini. So if they've sprinkled some Apple magic dust over the top of it, it'll be interesting to see. I'm really curious to see what they do with this because Siri's just horrific. It just really hasn't improved. For the amount of money they've probably spent keeping it going and doing behind the scenes stuff, I don't think us as end users have ever really seen anything better that's come out the front end of it. So I'm curious to see, is this all WWD's going to be this year? Is it loads of polish on the systems? Great. And we've got Siri and it's now going to be amazeballs. I just don't think they've had the time to do that, but I'm curious to see how it works.
I think we see evidence of what these agents can do, and I will never install it on my computer, but the new Claude Code thing that can actually take control of your mouse and, have access to your clipboard and you can drive it to do things is a clear indication of where these things are able to go. And if you're able to have an agent, be it Siri, Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, on your phone, computer, whatever, that can do these kinds of things for you, fine. I find it horrifying that you could have an agent who's independently going, hey, today I can't be bothered going into attending my Zoom meeting, so you can do that for me. You can just respond by text or by my voice because we've got the ability to do that now as well.
And my face and just AI simulate me. That's fine.
And just every so often open up Microsoft Word and type some stuff there so the keyboard logger knows that I'm actually doing some things, and then paste this thing. And while you're at it, you've got access to my calendar. So send my girlfriend some flowers or whatever else is within that as well. So welcome to our AI overlords. And if you are a consultant or a coder or maybe a lawyer or anybody who does knowledge work, hello, I'm one, you're one. This could just replace us. And genuinely, my tinfoil hat's firmly on today, but I don't want a Siri app. Thank you, Apple. It was built into the operating system. And you're not giving us a Siri app anyway. You're giving us Gemini in a fancy hat. And that's, wow.
I'm going to remain to be convinced on it, but they're going to do it, aren't they? Is it going to be any good? That's the question.
Well, we don't know that they're going to do it. We do know that direct from the company that Gemini will be powering the new Siri. They've said that. So they were unable to do it. However, they have platforms and chips that are powerful enough to run these things without causing the world to implode, it would seem. So fair, you can develop them for these. But I just think they're being distracted by what's possible here. And if WWDC is just them putting other people's code at the front and center of their platforms, they've lost it.
Yeah, I think that is a fair take. And are they actually adding value? That's the thing. Or is it just Gemini is now built in like YouTube used to be built in when you first bought an iPhone?
Are they jumping on a bandwagon? And last for news, in slightly surprising news that I sent you this week, and it's a Verge link, I apologize, but the US government banned consumer routers. So made in China.
Yeah, I think you need to finish that statement.
Well, it's not just made in China. It's made anywhere else but the United States. I mean, the heavy implication is China because everything's made in China. But this is an absolutely bat poo story as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they've gone and done it, but it seems to be the way we're going, right? Like everything's got to be made in. Is this because they want everything made in America? Is this because they've got their tinfoil hats on about the rest of the world spying? I don't really know where this one's going, but absolutely bonkers.
So the current administration in America wants everything to be made in America everywhere. Anyway, we knew that. That's what a lot of the tariffs were about.
Yep.
They wanted Apple, Dell, whoever it would be, to make your products in America. Fine. Everything's currently made in China. The process of making silicon things particularly is wasteful, creates toxic chemicals, copper runoffs, all this kind of stuff. It's not clean, and the reason a lot of these things are made in India/China/ pick country of your choice is that the labor laws aren't quite as stringent as they are, in The more, I hesitate even to say the more developed world, but let's just say the people have had technology a bit longer and have become services industries rather than those people who still make things for a living. Yeah. This particular thing is routers not made in the United States won't be able to be purchased. So your existing router is fine, but if you want to go and buy a new, I don't know, GLINet router or something like that, you won't be able to as a consumer. It doesn't apply to business stuff. And if you read the fine print, if you pay the right people inside of the agencies, then yeah, you will still be able to import whatever it is that you want to. What does this mean? That, Oracle will be able to slap an Oracle badge on some piece of tech that they bought from a Chinese company and go, no, we made that here because they paid, somebody at the FCC or whatever it is, $10 billion to enable them to still bring in their routers. What does this mean for an ISP? If you're, I don't know enough American providers. If you're Verizon and you've got home broadband, I bet you just buy your consumer routers from China, slap your own thing on the top of it with a bit of firmware, and off you go. They won't be able to do that anymore. This is large implications, I think, for businesses in America.
And rushed out and just crazy. I don't even know where. I've got a load of Ubiquity stuff. I've no idea where any of it's made.
China.
Probably China, to be fair, but isn't Ubiquity an American company? So how does that work?
Same as Apple. The Mac Pro was made in some company, some American. I'm going to keep bringing it up. Was made in some, American factory somewhere. It was the only computer they could claim was made in America.
Wasn't it in Texas or somewhere like that?
Trump even went to visit it, as I recall.
With Tim Apple.
Yeah, with Tim Apple in the first term. So you better get on to making routers. Again, my tinfoil hat is strong today. Where does this leave people to make their own routers? Because a router is just a computer running an operating system dedicated to do a thing. You could buy a Raspberry Pi, put a Pi hat on it with a couple of 5 gig Ethernet ports, and that could be your router.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? You need a port going out for the WAN and then a port for feeding internally for the LAN, and it's just managing the traffic between the two. That is largely what it does. I've overly simplified it, but that is largely what it's doing. So you're right, and I love the picture in this article that looks like something you'd make it at college.
Yeah, I mean it's very prototype, isn't it? It's just a board with many antenna. The MIMO. Look at the MIMO on that. I mean, I think that's
there's a lot of aerials on that. I hope you don't have children.
Yeah, there's a lot of aerials on that. I think we've got that for the news then, haven't we? Should we do a very brief car corner?
Yeah, we need to get Wrigley on.
Yeah, I thought you'd like this one. Apparently, if you've got a Ford Mustang EV, only the current model year, 2026, it now has integration with your charging data and will plot your journeys better inside of Apple Maps.
Yeah, so when I had my electric car, I never used any of this. I don't even know if it was there for my car, but I just never really used this because I just wasn't doing this sort of journey where I needed to work out where I'm stopping. I barely ever, I did lots of little commutes, and so I charged it at home and it would get me there and back usually. So I just never really worried about it. But this is cool. Like Apple should be doing this. It seems to be rolling out very slowly though to specific models rather than it just going, this now works for everybody. So
yeah, so
I don't know.
I did do a lot of trips with my EVs.
Oh yeah, no, you used yours like you should. I just didn't do a lot of traveling at that time.
Yeah, and it didn't work very well because the Apple Maps does not know the state of charge of your EV because there is no link unless the manufacturer builds some sort of software link in between Apple Maps and it, and that's complicated. How long is it taking Tesla to roll out alleged Apple Maps for its vehicles? Presumably because there could be something, and Tesla have got complete control over their stack. I suspect 70% of Apple employees drove Teslas. Certainly when I went to visit Infinite Loop a couple of years ago, there were a lot of Teslas in the car park.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
So you think it's something Apple definitely know about, but that linkage between what's going on in your car's battery, state of charge, is it on a hill, have you got the windows open, how far away is the charging station, can it precondition the battery, all that kind of stuff that's built into the car software isn't built into Apple Maps. So this is a step in this direction, presumably a software linkage. If you want to do it with something like a better route planner, you need to get, and I'll get the acronym wrong, an ODB dongle to put in your car, which will pull diagnostic data out of your car, and then you can set up a server effectively, and a better route planner will work between the two things. It's not straightforward.
No, not at all. No, you're right. It is a complex problem, but I'm just still amazed that so few car vendors have done it. And with Apple, you'd have thought, given how many people use CarPlay, that this would be a lot more readily available.
You would have thought so. It's a step in the right direction, like you say, that I mean, in-car maps are generally rubbish. I'm told the Hyundai ones are pretty bad, but I think most EV drivers have got to the point, certainly I was in the point, where I just ran either a better route planner and I planned it before, or I just put up with the dodgy software in the car and I planned around it, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair enough. So that was it. It's about 4 weeks since we've done a car corner, so that was nice.
I'm just completely, other than looking at petrol old cars, I'm completely out of that world at the moment.
And bemoaning the price of petrol itself.
Yeah, that is not a pleasant experience when you've got 3 cars to fill up.
Media?
Media, let's do it.
So Apple have done well with the BAFTAs, it would seem. They've been nominated for 15 nominations across 9 Apple TV series, with Slow Horses in the lead, unsurprisingly. Still the best show on Apple TV.
Better than Severance?
Yeah, I think so, but only just.
I think Slow Horse is a bit more mainstream than Severance. I think Severance is a bit more out there. But I don't know. I thought Severance was very good.
Yeah. So 4 for Slow Horses, 3 for Severance, which you're right is absolutely brilliant. Pluribus has also picked. Pluribus has also picked up a couple. Also a phenomenal show. What has it been nominated for? I can't even. One. The Studio, which I really struggled with. I mean, I could see it was clever, but I really struggled with it.
Yeah, same. I couldn't get into it.
Knife Edge Chasing Michelin Stars. Haven't seen that.
I did watch that. That was okay, but I'm amazed it's up for an award. It was basically about getting Michelin starred restaurants and what they do before award season. It was okay. It wasn't setting the world on fire. I enjoyed it as a bit of TV in the background, easy to watch, but I'm surprised up for an award.
Vietnam, The War That Changed America.
Haven't seen it.
Smoke, which I watched the first 3 seasons of and keep meaning to go back. I did quite enjoy it. Taron Egerton as a fire investigator, somebody starting fires and killing people. Did quite enjoy it. I might get back to it at some point. Down Cemetery Road, which was absolute garbage. I'm going to skip over it. Slow Horses we know. Prehistoric Planet Age, don't even know what that is. And yeah, that's it. Not a bad haul, actually.
Yeah, they're doing all right, aren't they? Fair play. They are the new HBO, aren't they?
They are the new HBO, although there's nothing wrong with the old HBO, frankly.
Fair point.
Moving on, Taskmaster is back on April the 9th. Are you excited?
I am. I need to just check in with my family. Are they going to bother watching it, or should I just crack on my own? I don't. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's hard trying to schedule my viewing around my family's viewing.
Yeah, I think at some point you just need to take the opinion and crack on and do it yourself. I'm trying to.
Yeah, I think you're right, and this is largely my children.
Yeah. So some interesting participants this time around. They've got Armando Iannucci, who wrote The Thick of It and Veep and that kind of very, very funny Scottish writer. So I'm excited to have him there. I can't get his name right. Kumail Nanjiani, who's a big Hollywood star in the same way as Jason Mantzoukas was a couple things back. That's Armando Iannucci there as we look at the trailer. Yep. Joanna Page, who was Stacey in Gavin and Stacey, and I think Joel Dommett.
I don't know who any. I know who a couple of these people are. So this could be good. I'm looking forward to this.
You know who Joanna Page is?
Yeah, her I do know. So no, this looks good. I wonder if I can get my kids to watch this. Maybe my wife will watch it if Joanna Page is in it.
Yeah, and I don't know who Amy Gledhill is. I've no idea who she is, but I do know the rest of them.
They do normally pick a good lineup, though, don't they?
They do, and there's only been, and even that season wasn't duff. There was one season that didn't hit quite as well as the others, but even during lockdown, they managed to keep it short. So I'm very excited. Back on the 9th of April. Fantastic.
Perfect.
I watched a film last night.
Spectre,
which I've been very down on in my life, I must say. It stood out in my head. I remember going to the cinema to watch it as having an absolutely fantastic opening. Possibly the best opening in any Bond. It's
the Day of the Dead one.
Day of the Dead. He's dressed as a skeleton. Stuff happens. There's explosions, helicopters. It's a really good start to the film, and then it went downhill. And I think it might have been a bit unfair, actually. I mean, there's a few logical inconsistencies, but it's a Bond film. I think they waste the bad guys, particularly Dave Bautista's character, sort of the killer henchman. I think his name's Hinks.
Yeah.
And then there's an absolutely stupid scene in the desert involving drills that it's pointless. This is going to damage you in all these ways, and it doesn't. He actually gets tortured by the bad guy, but it has no impact on him. I'm a bit like, what? What is going on here? Why have you done that? But the rest of the film is pretty solid. It's not a bad film.
Yeah, there is some odd bits, and the car chase was a bit odd, and it just Yeah, it was a bit of an odd one. I'm not sure I always like the beginning of Casino Royale for the Daniel Craig era where he's doing the parkour stuff. I thought that was a cool start. So I thought it was okay. So what have we got then? It's got a 60 critic reviews and
65 audience, 6.5.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair. 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10 is probably where I'd put it as well.
Yeah, it was all right.
Looks good. I've only got one left, though, Chris. I've got one Bond film left, and I've done the lot.
No Time to Die? I think that's what it's called.
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die.
Which is the last one, with Rami Malek as the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was quite good. Do you know what? I've barely gone back and watched them. Maybe I need to have another session.
I think it says something about some of the latter films is they don't have the rewatchability, or maybe it's just because there's so many things to watch these days. When I was a kid, I had plenty of time to go back and watch Goldfinger endlessly.
And they were on telly on repeats, and you had time on your hands. You didn't have a job.
Yeah, exactly. And you've actually managed to watch something as well, it would seem.
I have watched something. So I watched Ocean's 11 the other week, and I've really enjoyed Ocean's 11. Like, just here we are, 20 odd years later. What a fantastic film! Just generally good. You're rooting for the bad guys to pull off a heist, aren't you? And it was just well done. I thought Ocean's 11.
To clarify, Ocean's 11, the original Sinatra one or the remade one?
The remade one. I haven't seen the originals one. I know you should probably go watch that at some point. The remade one with Steven Soderbergh directing. I thought it was just for me, it was a fantastic movie. Everybody brought their A game. And it's just a really good film, and like 2 hours just whizzes by, right? So I thought I'd go watch Ocean's 12. Sorry, I think you were going to say.
No, you crack on.
So I thought I'd watch Ocean's 12, which I knew was a bit of a duffer. And I watched it, and it just didn't have it. It didn't feel like anybody brought their A game to Ocean's 12, which was a bit disappointing. And here it's got 58. And I would suggest that Spectre's a way better film than Ocean's 12. You know, for them to be scored similarly next to each other, I just think is completely wrong. I'd say your film was better than mine, and this is more like a 50% film. It was okay. It wasn't great.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. I've never seen it. I like you, I quite enjoyed Ocean's 11, which, how was it rated?
You've got the Sinatra one there.
That's the original, yeah. I can't.
The search on Metacritic is
not very good, is it? We'll skip over that. I'm sure it did very well. Yeah, Ocean's 11 I really very much enjoyed. I've never seen Ocean's 12. I think there's an Ocean's 13. And was there not some sort of remake, like an Ocean's 8 or something?
Yeah, so there is an Ocean's 13, which I've got lined up. I might watch that while I'm on holiday. And then there is also an Ocean's 8, which was predominantly ladies. And I guess they did 8, so they could have done 9 and 10. But they never did the 9th and the 10th. I guess it didn't score as well. Ocean's 11, the remake on Metacritic, got 74 and an 8.0. So I think so. I'd rate it slightly higher. I think it was a really good film. Not too serious, but just really engaging and just well done. Just the whole thing was really cool.
Fair enough. Games? I'm going to talk about Slay the Spire very, very briefly. Slay the Spire, which I'm always on about, and it's terrific and it's better than Threes, is a card-based battler, which I won't go on about because anybody who's listening to the podcast knows it. If you haven't got it, go and buy it. If you like to go pick up Slay the Spire 2 in early access. A novelty is that somebody has already made a mod for this expansion, which hasn't been released yet, I want to say, which will let you play against your friends, which is just incredible.
That is quite cool, isn't it? That somebody's made a mod for this. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's obviously got a keen following.
It's a huge game. It's such a deep game. There's so many ways to play it. And I'm just loving it. I've played a lot of Slay the Spire 2 over the last week.
Yeah, I don't think I've played anything. I've been rubbish lately. I apologise for my rubbishness.
Fair enough. Main show?
Main show.
So the big news, if you care about these things, was that Apple discontinued the Mac Pro this week.
Which is a surprise, I think, to probably nobody. I mean, I was in an Apple store. I sent you the photo of a back of a Mac Pro that's literally plugged in to the power. And for some reason it's got power, but nothing else. Why even bother? And I don't get why they've picked, late March to kill it. Why didn't they kill it when they launched all the new monitors and they were refreshing the stands in all the stores anyway? I don't get why they've held on to it for this. Well, I don't get why they've held on to it for the last 3 years.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mystery, the Mac Pro, isn't it? So we thought we'd take a sort of run through the Mac Pro's past and just sort of give a flavour. Because you got to pour one out for what was quite an iconic device for a little while.
It was an iconic device. It had, generally, the Mac Pro / Power Mac had a cachet. like for people like you and me, as maybe not even professionals, but students wanted one because they were cool. They looked cool. I could stuff loads of stuff in it, and it was the fastest Mac money could buy, and they were desirable, and possibly affordable. They were always a bit expensive, but they were semi-affordable, as both you and I had one at various points in our lives, and there was something you wanted, but then they ended up reaching a point where they became unattainable.
Yeah, so let's tell the story, really. The Mac Pro story starts with the Power Macintosh 7100. So we all know what the Mac looked like, the original Mac, and then there was the Mac SE that followed it, and then there was all manner of Macs in between. And they started to get more powerful with a differentiation from what was the Macintosh to the Quadra. The Quadra was the one where you got a little bit more power back in the Power PC days. Anyway, okay. The Power Macintosh came along in the form of the 7100. There were a couple of models with it, and it was a more powerful G3 chip, effectively, that they put into that. But it wasn't that notable, other than the fact that we're giving a little more power and charging people more money. It did come with 8 megs of RAM and an 80 megahertz PC chip, which, wow, back in the day.
Rod did say 8 megs there, just for people. 8 megs, this is what we're talking about in the mid-90s.
And notably, weighed 11 kilograms. So, that was a beefy monster.
That's what costs so much. You're paying per pound.
But the notable one came after it with the Power Mac 7500, and it would let you have PCI slots, so you're actually able to add upgradability and expandability to your more beefy Macintosh.
Yeah, okay. That was the differentiator largely, wasn't it?
So
for later years.
This was sort of the first true Power Macintosh, where if you were a studio person or you wanted graphics or you wanted other things, in the same way PCs had been able to do for a while, you could expand it by sticking cards on the inside, probably SCSI cards, knowing Macs.
Yeah, they were, and they had different ports on the back. There was not a lot of interoperability between peripherals of Macs and PCs.
Yeah, so this ran System 7.5 up to macOS 9.1, so that's sort of the generation we're talking about.
Had a good run.
It did have a good run. And it was followed by probably my first exposure to modern Macintoshes. So we were talking about our computer science days earlier, and I had my interview for computer science in Neil Harriman's office, and he had a Power Macintosh G3 Tower, not the beige one, but the first one, sort of iMac-inspired one, the blue one, sat on his desk next to his, well, it would have been a cinema display at that point, not a studio display, also, yeah.
In the same aesthetic, the same translucent blue-white aesthetic. It looked awesome.
Yeah, they were good. So, and this was a Power Macintosh G3, a very iconic box that it came in, and also would run OS 10 when it would come along.
Yep, and this is when Power Mac became the terminology. What a cool name. I've got a Power Mac. Like, I haven't got a Mac, I've got the Power Mac. Yeah, and it was cool. It looked cool. This was the one I really wanted. I just thought this looked awesome.
I mean, obviously we had Power Macs before this, because there was a Power Macintosh G3 Tower. The beige box was also a Power Mac. But this was them moving truly into the iMac generation. This was the first hint of modern Apple, and they sort of slammed down on this, I think, with the Power Mac G4, which you will recall our computer science labs were full of. I
used to have one of these.
You had a Power Mac G4, did you?
I bought one secondhand as a bit of a server at some point. When the G5 was out, I picked one of these up on the Bay. And this relatively cheaply.
It went through a couple of iterations. I nearly said irritations, but that works just as well, actually, where there were mirror drive door versions and all sorts of things. They enhanced this tower, and the rumor was people didn't really like buying the blue one because businesses didn't want blue bits of plastic on their desk, which is why they all went all silver and pro from that point on.
Boring.
Yeah, it was boring, but quite an impressive device, very well engineered, integral handles, and the power that came along with it. This was sort of the heyday of the G4, G3 generation chips.
Yeah, and look, these were cool, weren't they? They had loads of power. You could put cards in it, and you're showing a great picture there where the door came down. So you had it stand on the desk, you could open the side, and the whole motherboard or logic board would fold down with it, and you could get everything. It was super easy to work on, pop drives in and out. It was just really well engineered and thought out. I'd love these things.
I mean, still notably a PC. If you took an Intel or AMD or Cyrix at the time PC apart at the same time, the components were similar, except you had that care and engineering that sort of represented Apple. It's funny if you go back and read the 50 years of Apple, the first 50 years book, the care of engineering that Steve Wozniak brought in, that he wanted the processors to look tidy, line up, have good wiring. That genesis carried right through these initial Macintosh lines.
Yeah, no, agreed. I'm looking forward to reading that book, by the way.
Yeah, I've made a decent start on it, I've got to say. The G4 became the G5, and this was my sort of entry point to Tower Macs. I picked up a Power Mac G5. And you can see the DNA from the G3, G4 in this, and they've kept the silver colour. But a phenomenal, heavy, truly industrial piece of engineering that I used for several years.
And they still struggled, if I remember correctly, though, because you've got one DVD drive on here. They struggled for space in this thing because they needed so much cooling for the G5. You know, you can see it on the screen grabs. There's these massive heat sinks on there. And this was early 2003 to 2006 this ran for. They were cool devices. Again, always wanted one of these. I mean, I was a student at the time, could never afford it, but they were just so desirable. Even though they ran hot, and they had these huge heat sinks, but really desirable, and they look beautiful, unlike anything else at the time.
Yeah, there was a sort of spin out at this point called the Xserve. So Xserves were rack mountable Macs, which were 1U deep, that also had G5 chips in them. But it had become extremely apparent that Apple had painted themselves into a thermal corner. They were losing the horsepower race against Intel. The laptops were running very hot. You and I both had G4 laptops, and they got warm.
Just a little bit. And the G5 was never coming.
It was never coming. I remember a Macworld cover with a rendered G5 laptop on it, and it was thick and basically just covered in holes to get the cooling in for the G5 chips.
Yeah, the G5 was just never going to get into our hands. But this was cool. Like they were still desirable. And they had that ethos with the handles, and you could see their history from the G3 Power Mac all the way through to the G5.
Yep. And what came next was the Intel transition. And the Mac Pro was what really heralded the Intel transition. And as they had done before, they didn't make a lot of changes to the box. They basically put whatever it was at the time, Pentium X into the Power Mac
Xeon.
It was a Xeon into the. Was it for the developer toolkit? I'm not sure it was.
Oh, not for the developer toolkit. It was a Pentium 4.
It was a Pentium 4 of some sort that they put in the developer toolkit. It looked tiny, sat inside the massive G5 tower, but that was what was the desirable machine at that point. And you and I both bought Xeon G5 Power Mac Pros.
You're getting all your names in there.
It's too much, yeah.
But so when the PowerPC chip generation died, they then renamed the Power Mac to be the Mac Pro, launched it with Intel Xeons. It did have the developer kit, as you've said, was Pentium 4s to begin with. The Mac Pro, though, got you two DVD drives if you wanted it, because they had space, they had better cooling, and you could put 4 hard drives in, and again they had nice caddies that came with it, and you could slide them in and out, as Rod is perfectly demonstrating here. Obviously had loads of space for cooling. You could add cards, you could have proper graphics cards, you could play games on it even, and these were just...
And with Boot Camp, it was Boot
you could
Camp.
reboot into Windows.
You could play Windows games on it.
Yeah. You could reboot into full-blown Windows. You could have virtualization on it as well. These were awesome. I did have one of these, I'm going to say 15 years. It was before I had children, so 16, 17, 18 years ago. They did just reach, affordability for enthusiast market, I would say. And they were great devices, honking big towers, loads of expansion, loads of ports and I/O on them. Just really, really enjoyed them. I think it was a great design.
Yeah, this is interesting. You've got a G5 here and you've got a Mac Pro here, and the differences in cooling are immediately apparent. I mean, the Mac Pro, the G4 one, was a cheese grater. That it was just full of holes to get the airflow through the thing to cool those honking great G5 chips, dual G5 chips as well. Whereas immediately with the Intel one, you can see how much less it needed, far less cooling, and there were fans at the front as well. You used to have a thermal bit of plastic on the inside to keep all the airflow trapped inside of it, so there'd be air throughput throughout the device. But you're right about the connectivity. Look at the amount of ports on this thing. It had FireWire 800, it had dual Ethernet ports. You had all the expandability from the PCI slots. You had 4 drive sleds on the inside. You could put lots of ECC RAM on the inside. They were just great things.
Oh, it was cool. I loved mine because I could expand it. It cost me a lot to buy it, but then a few years later I could put a bit more RAM in. I could change the hard drives around. Oh, what a device.
It was expensive RAM, though, if memory serves, because it was ECC RAM.
It was expensive RAM if memory serves. Very good. You're on it today, Rod.
Yeah, the rest of my words aren't coming out, but my puns are going well. And from this tower...
So this was 2006. So we had the Intel transition 2006, so a year before the iPhone launched. And then they iterated on the regular Intel tower over 2008, 2009, 2010, 2012. And then that brought us up to I think this is where you're going, to the 2013 trash can Mac Pro.
And I'm trying to find a proper picture of it because I need one.
Scroll down.
I got one, and I will scroll down. Here you go. So this was the second generation Mac Pro, which everybody infamously calls the trash can.
The trash can, because it looked like a trash can. It was tiny. It had no expansion. It was cylindrical. It looked cool. It did look, again, very desirable. This is what the Mac Studio then became in later years, basically.
I'm going to stop you there. I don't think it did, because I think the Mac Studio inherited its DNA from the Power Mac G4 Cube.
Oh yeah, maybe. Good segue there. The Power Mac G4 Cube. Oh, very desirable. But no, the trash can. So we better finish off. Again, super desirable. Looked great. Had a logic board. It was like a trifecta in the middle, wasn't it? Had like 2 graphics cards and a logic board, but was meant to be amazing at cooling, but wasn't. They released it in 2013 and did nothing with it for about 7 years until we ended up in 2019. But it looked cool. Always wanted one just because it looked cool. But the cost at this point had started to increase. It was way more expensive than its predecessors, and it started to become unattainable unless you're a true creative or you were buying it through your business. It wasn't for the enthusiast anymore. Yeah,
I mean, what you're saying about the Mac Studio is they wanted you to do external upgrades. They didn't want PCI slots anymore, and they themselves said they designed themselves into a thermal corner. They banged those 2 Xeon CPUs in there. It was a thing of beauty to have a curved circuit board like this with all the RAM, and you could just about upgrade the processors in it, the Xeons in it, but it was problematic. You couldn't get enough cooling. It was thermally throttled. It was a work of art, but didn't go anywhere, much like the G4 Cube.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, what a device. And it hung around, as Apple does, for far too long.
It did. That then, they decided they famously had a town hall where they got a bunch of developers in and they went, all right, we know we messed up with the Mac Pro, therefore we're going to do it again, and it's going to be a thing of beauty and power. And they released the 3rd generation Mac Pro, which very much harked back to that cheese grater look of the original Power Mac G5.
Yep, and they basically said we're coming back to the Mac, because we had the iMac Pro in the midterm to bridge the gap, and then they brought out this Mac Pro in 2019, so not long before the Apple Silicon transition. And this, like you say, very much came back to the look and feel of the previous towers that got discontinued in 2013, had lots of holes in it, loads of I/O, loads of PCI expansion, big honking case. You could stick loads of hard drives in it. No DVD drives, obviously, at this point. But it was great. It was a very desirable looking device, launched with a new screen as well, the Pro Display XDR, but this thing cost like £7,000. So again, you'd gone from a £1,500 device back in 2006, and I know inflation and everything's moved on. Then you ended up at I think it was like $3,500 for the trash can. Then you got up to like $7,000 for this, and you get up to $10,000 without skipping a beat, just by doing a few configs. It's like being on the Porsche configurator. And it went on for a long time. This device was with us through to 22, so it had a good 3-year run, and it's still supported today. So it had, it's had a good 7-8 year run where it's very powerful. And if you had one right now, you'd probably be very comfortable using it.
But they didn't really upgrade it.
No, they didn't. They never once tweaked it. There wasn't even a spec bump, I don't think.
No. So they went through all the money and hassle of re-engineering this case, and the back of the Studio Display XDR was designed to look like it. So if you look at the back, it also has the sort of strange, oddly milled sort of vents front and back on the device. So having spent all the money redesigning the case for one generation of computer, which was not bought by very many people at all, Apple Silicon comes along.
Yeah, and that took us then and it took them a while. So Apple Silicon came out in 2020, and in 2022, they released the Mac Pro with PCI slots, with Did it have hard drives in it? I can't remember now.
Yeah, you could put hard drives in it and you could put audio expansion, but because it was Apple Silicon, it already had an onboard GPU because that's part of the silicon on die thing. So this computer never supported external graphics cards, and that was one of the points of the Mac Pro, was you could bang in an NVIDIA, well, no, not an NVIDIA, but a very impressive ATI graphics card. Apple didn't get on well with NVIDIA.
No.
And, be able to run decent games on it. So it was comical looking on the inside of this device because the silicon in a chip was the same one that went into the Studio, and the Studio doesn't have a very big motherboard, but it's got a bit of height in it for cooling as much as anything else. This was just a large, very expensive, empty box.
Yeah, it was crazy, wasn't it? And very few people must have bought this. This came out in 22. It felt like they were going to do a better chip, but it basically had the same chip as the Studio, didn't really run any quicker. It just cost you $3,000 more money for roughly the same amount of compute. It's very hard to justify. It makes you wonder, though, were they going to do there was always rumour of an extreme chip coming. So I wonder whether they did this and then they were going to do the next version, but for whatever reason, the next version never came. Maybe the market wasn't there. And maybe they're actual slower devices, I say slower in speech marks, because they're so good. And you and I have said it, like, performance is so good in the lower tiers now that actually, do you really need some of the upper tiers for regular people?
Well, I think the MacBook Neo is proving that you probably don't for 90% of what people do. It would be remiss of us to skip over the fact that this particular machine, the redesigned one, this Generation 3 Mac Pro, which became the Apple Silicon one, you could also get a wheel kit for. So if you didn't want the little legs that it came on, you could pay another $700 and add some wheels to it, which is probably an M2 MacBook Air on refurb at this point.
Well, yeah. Well, it's more than a MacBook Neo.
Yeah, or an iPhone SE.
It's absolutely bonkers, isn't it? But this was Apple at peak indulgence of this is what the Rolls Royce of power compute looks like. I've put a link to MKBHD's video in the show notes because it's a really good video. And at the end of it, he goes, "Look, Apple have done what they've done before. They've just brought out the Apple Silicon Mac Pro. They've got it in the same chassis as before. This is what they've done with all their other lineups. They're sure to release another one with a new chassis that's really built for Apple Silicon, like they did with the MacBook Pro, the MacBook Air, the Mac Mini, but they never did. And you've got to think that was their plan, but for whatever reason, they killed it because maybe the market's not there because their other devices have cannibalized that part of the market."
Yeah, I think the Studio, let's face it, since the iMac, they've always wanted to sell you a box with everything on it. They don't really want to sell you screens. That's really obvious from what goes on. But the market demands that they want more powerful computers attached to it. This was always meant to be that. But who wants a big honking thing running under their desk churning out loads of heat these days? They don't. People have laptops. I mean, even the Mac Minis you and I are using at the moment, this podcast with each other, are pretty rare devices.
Yeah, true. I don't disagree. I love just walking down to my shed, though, and just put my thumbprint on the keyboard and it unlocks and I haven't got to plug anything in or do anything and it's all perfectly set up. I do enjoy that world, I must confess.
Yeah, I mean, it suits us because we're old school computer users, but I don't think my kids would ever even think twice about getting a desktop computer.
Mine have because gamers, but that's probably a little bit different.
Yeah, it's funny. My youngest did used to play a bit of Fortnite and stuff like that, and could see the point of having like a tower computer, or at least a more stationary computer with a bit more power. But even then, your Android phone runs Fortnite at this point, doesn't it? So why would people do this?
Yeah, true. I just like sitting in front of a big screen, I think, and having this, like I say, the setup's all here.
Yeah, we're old school, though. I think probably what we should say is RIP Mac Pro. We barely knew you. We both had them. It was good. I spent a lot of time in front of my Mac Pro. I did a lot of work in front of my G5 Power Mac because I had one in the NHS. Never let me down. Always ran. Only occasionally got frustrated with it. And RIP.
Yeah, it's a sad day. I think if this was, I don't know, $2,500, I'd have possibly thought about getting one. But it's just so much money. It's just so much. And that's where the Studio's eating its lunch, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the Mac Mini, you put a decent enough chip in a Mac Mini, and I don't know if you've been listening to ATP about what Marco's been doing with this server farm of Mac Minis, which I just think he's managing them in the most mental way possible. Learn about Unix management tools, learn about Ansible playbooks when you're configuring computers and things like that. But that is a use case of professional Macs. If Apple still made servers or Mac Pros, 2 or 3 Mac Pros would have replaced, a fleet of Mac Minis once upon a time. So RIP Mac Pro.
Yep, agreed. Sad days.
App of the week.
Do it.
App of the week this week, and of course I'm on a Mac, so it's not going to open, but you'll be able to get it in the show notes, is the YouTube Music app for your iPhone. I just prefer Google's recommendation engine for music. They get a better feel for what I actually listen to. They've recognized that, no, I don't just listen to soundtracks, I only listen to soundtracks and work. So when I ask it to give me a mix of music, it doesn't just chuck a bunch of Hans Zimmer at me, and it's driving me crazy slightly, the Apple Music app at the moment. So, app of the week, YouTube Music.
Yeah, that's fact. You know what? I never think of YouTube Music. When I was thinking of flirting with Spotify, I thought of Spotify. I never thought of music. And I don't think of Prime Music either. But they all have similar services, don't they?
I mean, I should go for a European provider, but I kind of get it for free because I've been added to a friend has added me as a family member to his YouTube subscription, so I get YouTube Music for free, which is why I'm doing it. But it's a really good app, and the web app is unsurprisingly stellar.
Yeah, it's no brainer, isn't it? If you've got it, why wouldn't you use it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not paying for it. Thing of the week.
So I've put my Remarkable Fold in here, which I bought a while ago and we've talked a little bit about on the show. But I've been using it quite a lot lately. I've been in a lot of meetings and I love this little thing. It fits in my pocket. I'm holding it up for the camera. It's got lots of love on the OS. You've got roughly an update coming out once a month. They're adding lots of new features. Like you can sync it with Miro. Do you remember we used Miro a little while ago? To do, I can't remember what it was, maybe for a tier list or something, and I can sync it with that, and you links to your OneDrive, so you can pull through OneDrive, so you can pull through PDFs and annotate them, and then the next release is going to link with my calendar, so that if I've got a meeting in my calendar, I can then link my notes on here to that meeting. I just think they're doing some quite cool stuff, and it's great to see they're investing in their infrastructure, and I think the hardware's lovely. I think it's really reliable, but yeah, that's what I thought. Just to have a check-in after I've had it for 8-9 months.
Fair enough. We should maybe do a long-term review at some point. It's fair. I'm not a note-taking person like this. Having an iPad with a pencil proved to me that I'm not a note-taking person. I write notes with my keyboard. That's why I like mostly because my handwriting's so bad. I think that's what it comes back to.
My handwriting is not good, but I don't like typing. When I'm in a meeting, I like to scribble. I think though Remarkable's ads don't do them any favors, because when you see the Fold, it looks like you can't fit much on the screen, but you 100% can. They're just showing lots of big writing, whereas what they should be showing is actually how you're properly using it. You can get a lot on the screen. It's really well done. The software is excellent.
Yeah, I've seen students using these, and I would say from a software point of view, it's nice to see a company actually focusing on the things that they should be focusing on in terms of developing their platform. You look at somebody like Zoom or one of the video conferencing platforms, you can see, or Microsoft, you can see them just shoving Copilot, AI features. You need a document in here, you need an Excel spreadsheet in here. Focus on the things that device / software / widget is good for, not all the other things you think you're gonna be able to monetize down the line. So yeah, it looks like a good device if it's what you need.
Yeah, and they're allowing my principles. I think they're not just, like you say, forcing slop upon me, which is really good. So would 100% recommend people check out. Not cheap, but a quality device. I
think we can call that a show, Chris.
I think so. So if anyone wants to contact us, Rod is at g5maniac@mastodon.scot. I am at _CJP@mastodon.social. You can watch on YouTube by going to wakefromsleep.com and click on our YouTube link, or you can drop us an email at wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.